Back with Omar here doing a little drill on Stingray. That's quite a toughie. The goal of this was approaching that front corner and playing two alternate shots. So first one is that counter drop. And I'm just there hoping, cleaning up some balls, like anything that he might slip on over there. So again, brutal for the movement, because what he's doing is he's approaching the corner, playing that little counter drop under a bit of pressure. Didn't quite get that right. But here's the next thing that he's trying to do is play a cross-court lob, decent enough one with enough height, enough hang time, and enough slowness that he has to cover that. Ideally get there. If he beats himself, that's totally cool. The goal was, can he hit a drive? If he can't, he needs to then get a boast out. The idea that he's having to, two things. He's having to play enough of a loopy lob, which is great in a match, give you a lot of time, but also the speed of his movement getting out of there to chase and cover that to be able to defend himself. So let's see how he does there. He definitely doesn't get that one right. We just work on a few things. And what he's actually got a little trigger in his right hand where he's pressing the button and he's doing it himself there. That was slightly better. Look at that. That's great. Like he beat himself because of the quality, but to be able to lob from there, and there's a few technical things he probably needs to do a little bit more. So when working on that lob, he definitely got his racket up too high. There's way too much height in that racket because what he has to do, he has to use quite a lot of speed to go up and around. And all of that speed he's generating in and around there negatively affects the touch he can have. And he does okay, but like he has to stop his swing a bit, which is okay. Like actually the lob from the front under pressure, there isn't much follow through. One other thing as well, I don't think the ball is in front of him enough. I know Stingray's blocking it there, but that ball should be a lot more in front. He should be reaching for that ball. But what I like here, this is a big thing I talk about when people are trying to lob. As the ball hits the front wall, you need to get enough elevation from your racket face to that to then be able to kick the ball up again for it to loop over. And he does that really well. So as it hits the wall, look, it hits there and it kicks up. And then look at how much hang time he's getting. Look at that. That's really good. Using all the height, and the ball, you can't even see it there now, using all the height to lift it over. And his opponent would never be able to volley that. His opponent is now, or if they're going to volley it, they have to volley it back in that position there, having to get away from the tee. And by that point, Omar should have recovered. So he's doing well. He's like a gazelle in the savannah there, like having to kind of cover that ground, which is exactly what we're looking for. Like this speed across the court. He's under pressure, and I don't think he gets it out. Gets there, and yeah, too tough. But that's cool. It doesn't, I know it sounds weird. It doesn't really matter if he gets it or not. The fact is that it's all about kind of the process of what he's doing. Another thing as well, I'm really glad I'm watching this because he's definitely not quite doing this right. And you might have seen in previous videos, big fan of getting the racket head above the wrist. But for this drop shot, we need to simplify it. Everything needs to go down a little bit more, just pushing out there. So that racket comes down and should just literally go and tap that ball in. There's too much complication here. For a counter drop, there's too much going on. He gets it down and he's definitely not in the right body position there. He's a bit upright, a bit too early. I would like to see him crouching, getting those knees bent a little bit more early on, reaching out. And another little side note, he looks quite high up on that grip. I'd like that racket to be slightly longer, especially for the counter drop. You can reach in there and play that and feather it out. So let's see what he does here. Yeah, same thing with the lob. You can just see there's a lot going on in there. There's a big movement there, a lot of swing. So as he hits, doesn't hit very high on that one. And you can just see what he's having to do in and around there. There's a lot of compromise with the racket. There's a bit of a bendy wrist position. And all of those little things don't necessarily help facilitate the best lob possible. And another thing, I think the reason he might not be getting it, I think his feet are too high up the court. They feel a long, long way from that line. And again, he's not going to anchor a back foot there and reach the next foot in there. He's not tall enough, but also, uncomfortable. But there needs to be more stretch and reach out for this. So he's going in. Let's see what happens. He's there. And almost like, I'd like to say, actually there, could he even keep his right foot down and his left foot lunges in? And he takes a lot of little adjustment steps. And I think everything's a bit too close. He's too close to the front wall. He's a little bit too side onto the ball. I know we can't see it exactly. And he's actually quite, he's opened up, hasn't he? His chest and shoulders are slightly open. And for me, that's what's having a negative effect on the shot execution. But also now he's so out of position that he's having to kind of chase all of that from a tough position. So I'm hoping the next time we do this, these little corrections will help. And again, he slightly overhits that. So it wasn't quite the true reflection. So yeah, and also he's probably getting a bit tired here, but there's just a little bit of a jog, not quite the squash movement I'm looking for to be able to almost get there, pause for a second, explode, and then play a little counter drop. So again, I'm a big fan of trying to get the same setup, the same body position, but having multiple different shots. This one was more about the counter drop and the lob, and those are two really good partnerships. Again, I'll say that again. The counter drop and the lob from this position are two great shots to have. And so there, again, I know Stingray is blocking it, but where his racket is there, that's how I would like to see him move in from that position there. Just getting it low, pushing it out. He gets it up a little bit, then he gets it down. And I just don't think the control is as good. Then he just chips it and clips into that side wall. Let's watch what's happening with the lob now. Yeah, it's a full swing, isn't it? You can kind of see there, he's there, his elbow actually hitches upwards, creating a lot of speed around there. And the ability to touch and float the ball isn't quite there. He's having to really work. Look how he's bending his wrist in the follow through. And there's definitely going to be a wrist flick, but not that. And I think also that bending of the wrist is down to his side-on position, like not quite in the right position footwork-wise to get it. But listen, look at that. Like the execution's not too bad. Just obviously clips it out. I've said it before in previous videos. I'm a big fan of that corner of the service box. If people are trying to lob, there's so much more height above the corner of the service box rather than trying to get it right on the side wall there, because you run the risk of doing what Omar did there, is pulling it out. So again, corner of the service box is where you want to be lobbing that ball out. He's having to bounce off that glass there. Okay, didn't quite do the trigger quite well, but I think I'm replacing the tube here. So let's just go forward real quickly while I replace it. Let's see how he's doing on the next few. Probably just a couple more little coaching points to talk about. Okay, let's have a little look here. So as he's hitting, if I get out the way. Yeah, and I think I'm going to be repeating a few things there because that side-on position is not quite right. Let me just zoom in. Yeah, there. Okay, so I'll probably use this as one of the last ones. As you can see, yeah, he reaches a bit more, but it's too much of a swing. Actually, I want to kind of find a better one. And he's doing well. He's working his butt off to get there, which is great. Good for movement. Yeah, see there's too many moving parts. So he's got it. It's too high up just for a simple counter drop right now. I just think he needs to be low. Pushing it in, does really well with the execution. Yeah, it's interesting what he does. Even I like that he's pulling his fingers and he's opening and he's trying to soften. I would like to see that grip slightly longer and reducing those amount of moving parts. For the lob, it just needs to be a turn of the wrist. I've got some other videos with me demonstrating the lob in particular in that front. So have a little look out for those, because I think the nuance of what's happening here is super important. I've made some key points already, but I think the next time we do this with the movement, partnering up the counter drop and the lob with Omar, he's only going to improve on this, and he's only going to make it much harder for his opponents, because in essence, he is in a compromised position. He is defending, and these two shots for a defensive position will be really great.